So, not only is fashion and dress used as to define who we are, but it also makes us who we are. So, the idea is that let's look at, for example, clothing worn by women that restricted their movement. Back at the turn of the 20th century, women wore dresses that were cut in such a way that they actually couldn't move their arms. They didn't have flexibility. The dresses were cut so they could not move their arms completely forward. They wore corsets which prevented them from bending at the waist. So when they bent, they had to bend like this, so they couldn't bend down and pick something up. These garments not only restricted their movement, but of course it restricted what they could do and how they perceived themselves and how others perceived them. Back to the Victorian period, where those corsets were tied extremely tightly at the waist, it was not uncommon for women to have them tied so tightly that they would that they would faint. And so the perception was that women were weak, and women kind of went along with this perception. They perceived themselves as being weaker because they were fainting. They allowed themselves to not perform certain tasks because their clothing restricted what tasks they could perform. And this was so which came first, the identity or the action, the clothing or the identity? They were all bound up together, and in many ways I think clothing continues to do that. Looking at, again, going back to what I was saying students would likely to wear jeans and a sweatshirt. But what makes it clear on first glance that this is a male and this is a female, or that or that this person belongs to a particular group or a different group? We adorn ourselves in such a way that we communicate what aspect of our identity is more important. The movement in the latter part of the 20th century, continuing on to this century, for equality for women has had, in the workplace, has had an influence on the clothing that women wear, so that we see women wearing more clothing that is similar to that was worn by men. The acceptance of women in trousers and pants is, wearing jeans or whatever, is just, it's ubiquitous. There's nobody thinks twice about it. Whereas certainly 100 years ago, it was very unusual and considered very daring and brash. So the expectations of our culture, the shaping our identities, these are all formed by the clothes that we wear and the message that we're communicating. We consciously select clothing that will project a particular image. It'll be approved by our group, or otherwise we would experience censure. It will receive the attention that we want it to receive. So some of us may dress on certain occasions to be inconspicuous, to blend into the group, to not distinguish ourselves. And then in other instances, we certainly will dress more flamboyantly or in a way that will distinguish us from others in our group.